Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about In Good Hands 2. In Good Hands 2 is a Turkish drama and sequel to the previous entry in the series following the death of previous lead character Melissa. Her lover Firat and son Can are trying to move on with their lives 1 year after her passing, but they find it difficult to do so due to the impact she had on both of them. Firat becomes an alcoholic and puts his health in jeopardy, while Can has a hard time dealing with bullies at his school. It isn't until a woman enters their lives that the two finally have a chance to make peace with their circumstances, but they still wonder if they will ever truly fill the void that Melissa left behind. I was curious to see how this would turn out, as I quite liked the first movie, but this second one didn't live up to my expectations. I appreciate how it tries to continue the emotional story of its characters in a different direction, but everything else about it feels conventional, to the point that it's almost the same as the original. Firat takes over as the lead character this time around, and it's interesting to see him in this perspective. He's clearly devastated over the loss of his partner, and he struggles to adapt to his role as a father to Can. His life is almost a total wreck, and I genuinely felt for what he was going through. Melissa's death affects him so much he drinks to try and numb the pain, and to be honest, I'm on the fence about this aspect. On one hand, it makes complete sense as to why he would resort to something like that, and his actor does a fantastic job at conveying the suffering that his character goes through, even as he tries to suppress it. On the other hand, though, it also felt like a lazy plot device to throw in conflict just for the sake of having it in. Firat is even supposed to be on the verge of getting cirrhosis due to his condition, and for whatever reason, the movie never builds on it or shows his illness progressing, as opposed to how Melissa's cancer slowly weakened her in the first movie. It is intriguing to see parallels between Melissa and Firat, but it's not done as well for the latter. Can is more well done as a character by comparison. Like Firat, he can't get over his mother's death. Except for him, he's in so much denial, he insists on creating a time machine just so she can be brought back. His depression follows him like a cloud wherever he goes, and the bullying only makes things worse, which made me feel even worse for him. On top of this, he is adamant about not having a new parent in his life, which is understandable due to how hard it was for him to accept Firat in the first movie. He's been through enough and doesn't want to risk his heart being broken again, which is already being hurt anyway because of what Firat does to himself. I felt terrible for him, which made it easier to become invested to see how he'd come through. The relationship between these two characters is probably the best thing this movie has going for it. It's more positive than it was in the first movie, but they still have their issues. Even though Firat is close to Can, neither he nor anyone else can replace his mother, so it's interesting to see how the two navigate their grief, as it unfortunately results in one taking their frustration out on the other. While I can't say that's necessarily a healthy way of going about coping, I don't begrudge either of them for doing it. It's clear the two have other issues going on in their lives, and Melissa's death is only aggravating things more for them. The good thing is they're usually able to realize the error of their ways and make things up with each other, and I like how it shows how they go through the grieving process together. At the same time, though, the movie tends to be repetitive in this regard. It's a common cliche in Turkish dramas where something dramatic will happen, and then it gets handled, and then another problem comes along, and then it bounces back and forth from there. But it didn't feel as obvious in the first movie. Here it feels like it's rehashing the same drama of Can not being used to Firat even 1 year later, and it gets old after a while. This is where the supporting character Sen comes into play. As a character in her own right, I thought she was pretty good. She's kind of the voice of reason that tries to alleviate things between Firat and Can, and her motives become more apparent as her backstory is slowly unveiled, and I enjoyed seeing how it tied into Firat's story. However, as a love interest for Firat, she's not quite as captivating. The romance between the two feels predictable and bland in general, and it's weird how Can is more or less okay with her hanging around after just a few chats. I thought the movie would explore the conflict that could come with Sen taking over the mother role that Melissa left after her passing, but sadly the movie never takes advantage of this. I found this movie's story to be much more melancholic in nature compared to the previous movie, which is odd considering the emotional stakes were much higher in that one. The grief weighs heavy on both main characters, and again it makes sense because it's hard to lose someone and they both react in different ways. That being said, the drama does feel forced at times. Again, it may be a consequence of being a Turkish drama, but some moments just felt way too hammy to take seriously, like how Can dances in front of a group of bullies who constantly laugh at him, or while Firat drunkenly rants outside his family's home and sad music is playing loudly while it all happens. It can be a bit extra. On the flip side, the movie does try to lighten the mood when it can, which is appreciated when the characters go through so much emotional turmoil. One scene that sticks out in my mind is when Sen and Can take a hose and water down one of the school bullies. It's obvious that the bully is laughing and having fun being blasted with water, but moments like that do help give a break from the drama. And I have to say that Istanbul's scenery is still as awesome as it was the first time around. The cinematography is always a pleasure to witness in the city, and barring some overly dramatic moments, the movie does a pretty good job in its pacing too. It knows when the atmosphere is supposed to be heavy and when to be lighthearted. I liked how it explored several themes in the same vein as its predecessor. It examines the definition of family, how grief brings people together, and how personal demons can rip them apart. A lot of serious stuff is covered in this movie, and I appreciated how it didn't pull any punches with it. In the end though, I can't help but feel that this is an unnecessary sequel. Much of it feels rehashed or repackaged from the first movie, with Firat's health issues mirroring Melissa's, and Sezen's sudden parent role mirroring Firat's. It's admirable to want to continue the story in a meaningful way, but I feel the first movie ended on such a poignant note that the sequel sort of diminishes the impact that it had. It's definitely not bad, and it deserves some recognition for finding a way to build from its predecessor, but it feels too familiar to get all that excited about. Overall, In Good Hands 2 is a decent but unneeded sequel that treads familiar ground, and does so well enough, but also without much inspiration. If you liked the first movie and really wanted to see how the characters moved on with their lives, this movie will fill those blanks in, though whether or not you'll be impressed by it is another thing. I wouldn't say I regretted watching this movie, as it was nice to see the characters develop in unique ways following the first one, but I would have been fine not seeing it either. It's just a repainted version of the first movie with repurposed characters and themes. But that being said, Netflix has made far more unnecessary and worse sequels than this, so I'm confident that if they do decide to make a third movie in the series, it'll be in good hands. What did you think about this movie? Did you enjoy Firat and Chan's new story, or were you let down by it instead? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of In Good Hands 2. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the sci-fi action flick, Atlas. Bye bye!